Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I am Nick Scheist, and you may remember me from the Scheist Podcast and Bad Movies We Love.
And I'm Seth Vargas of the Movie Friends Podcast.
And we decided to join forces, a team up, if you will, because X-Men 97 was so good, we just couldn't help ourselves.
That's right. So join us as we discuss our personal history with the comics, the films, and the collectible trading cards of the X-Men universe.
And, of course, the catalyst for it all, X-Men 97. To me, my ex-friends. Mr. Magnus goes to Washington. So we start in episode 2 with, Scott is just way up in his feelings, way hurt that Professor X did not choose him. And on the one hand, I understand, because it's yes, he was basically Xavier's son. And he is the logical choice to lead the X-Men. He is essentially their field leader. He's their tactician. If you had to guess, if there was an election within the X-Men of who would be the leader, they would probably, with a few exceptions, they would probably mostly vote for Scott. And so he, I think, is rightfully hurt and contemplating wanting to step out more than ever. And it's interesting that through the introduction of Magneto as the leader, we really start to refine Cyclops's politics and how they're different than Xavier's. And that is important because it leads to a lot of important things down the line, where the whole Magneto was right, Cyclops was right storyline, where there's the rift in the X-Men and all that, which happens in the comics. But all of this is important because, Charles has presented a very idyllic view of the world and what it could be, and that just speaks to who Charles is as a person, that he believes that this is possible, and he doesn't feel the need to just hop on Cerebro and be like, hey, everybody on planet Earth, you are now going to not hate mutants anymore. He doesn't force it. He believes in the inherent goodness of man, which I think is an important piece of the puzzle. And then the more that we see Charles is not there, we see that narrative is very fragile, and we don't see it in practice very often. So Scott's politics, as he's exposed to Magneto, become more like Magneto than like Charles. So it's he actually has a lot more in common with Magneto than he does with Charles, but he respects Xavier because he's like a father figure to him.
Right.
And before he goes to Washington, we get introduced to Magneto in his outfit.
Well, hold on. Before we get there, I just wanted to comment on Charles as the archetype is God, basically, right? And
yes.
So, if we go through the Christian Judeo God, this is an entity that knows all, sees all, right? And despite knowing the thoughts of all men, is still encouraging all men to love one another and care for each other. And so for Charles, you would think, being a mind reader, I just imagine how, we complain about how toxic, Facebook and Twitter are because we can see everyone's thoughts at all times. And we're like, oh, maybe knowing everyone's opinion that they think on everything isn't good, because gee willikers, some people are pretty nasty and vile. But just imagine if you could actually walk through the supermarket and read everyone's thoughts, right? It would be probably pretty horrifying. But Charles, in this place of, this God figure, he still pushes for, peace and love and understanding. And then if we take him as a Christ figure, when he's gone, in his absence, right? Scott has this choice of following what he knows he would want to do, but then you have this devil on his shoulder in Magneto, who is also powerful, and also he has a very, very different view of humanity. So it's clearly not written specifically for this show, because Charles and Magneto have been around for decades and decades, but it's just cool to see how they're pulling off of these huge universal ideas, but putting them into this small story, and it still works. It still fits. But Magneto's outfit is horrible. It is. Oh my
He
God.
looks like someone's fabulous grandmother. Okay.
It-
He
it-
shows up with bicep length gloves in like a shiny magenta one piece, and he's got this purple cape and a giant M on the front. And I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, this is a different Magneto. And he decides to dust off that costume as soon
Mhm.
as Charles is gone.
Mhm.
So, like, the loss of Charles, I'm like, Magneto is out now. And
Mhm. Yeah, I loved that. I really, really loved that conversation where he explains I could always feel the presence of Charles. And it wasn't that he was in my mind, but I was in his thoughts and he was in my thoughts. And Rogue says, is that why you protected himself? Not because he would take over your mind, but because if you could feel how much he loved you, you wouldn't go through with what you were doing. And I was like, oh my God. Like what
yeah.
what a poignant, like deep interpretation of their tit for tat relationship. And it's like, it's not that Magneto is protecting himself from Charles's hate and anger. He's protecting himself from Charles's like love and care for him. It's like, oh man. But yeah, I was like, Magneto, pick that helmet back up, put it back on. Like, I know that you're free now to kind of be yourself, but maybe you under Charles was better.
Yeah, well, someone had said, like when the episode first released, it was like Magneto got a fresh blowout before heading to Washington, and I was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he looks fabulous, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a costume choice for him.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure he's wearing eyeliner because when they do close-ups, it's like very black
Mm-hmm.
around his
Mm-hmm.
eyes. And I'm like, look, I'm okay with all of this because throughout the course of X-Men history, whether it be in the movies and like people just want to see what they want to see kind of thing, like Charles and Magneto love each other. And like the
Mm-hmm.
degree to which they love each other is maybe up for debate, but
Sure.
whether or not they do love each other is without question. And I think
Oh
we
yeah.
see that echoed pretty powerfully in this episode. And I think that's like a pretty bold position to stand on as the X-Men if you actually want to do it. There's actually the first X-Men same-sex wedding that's happening this week in the comics. Mystique
Hmm.
and Destiny, I want to say her name is, are getting married. And like they're a couple that's been together for like 100 years in this story.
Yeah.
So it's like it's long overdue that these themes are, when you're using the X-Men as sort of an avatar for persecuted class of people,
Yeah.
minorities, essentially, right? It's long overdue to actually represent the minority causes that you're using to tell your story. So I think
Right.
it's more than appropriate for Magneto and Charles to be gay or bisexual at this point in their, existence. It's fine. But we get the fabulous Magneto as a result, and he strolls into Washington like this. But before they get to Washington, where he agrees to do this, we get Scott with another major personal violation where he doesn't trust Magneto. And he's just like, no, your mind needs to be under observation 24/7.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Scott's like, I'm totally cool with this. One of our
Yeah.
mind readers is just going to be there to read your mind all day, every day. And it's like,
Yeah.
Scott, this is a huge fucking personal violation once again. And it's just interesting that like he is not pumping the brakes on that whatsoever. He's like, no, fuck Magneto. This guy needs his mind read all the time. All we've ever done with him is fight. He needs to be watched. And zero issues with that whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I can't expect Scott to trust him, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Um, it is interesting, like being someone who's trying to uphold the law. Meanwhile, you're a vigilante. You're not law
Yes.
enforcement. You're not military. Like you guys are. It's your vigilantism. But then being like, well, if it's an illegal document, my hands are tied. It's in the will. I guess I'll have my lawyers look it over, but I won't be happy about it, Magneto. But you know,
Who is the X-Men's lawyer? They don't have a guy who has like super mutant law powers.
Beast probably. I mean, Beast is a genius in a
He
lot
seems
of
like he would
different
like that.
fields. Rogue, I guess, could just grab a lawyer by the neck and become a lawyer overnight, right?
Yeah, maybe that's why. It's like, hey, we'll just siphon some legal expertise when we need it.
Right. Yeah.
As she does to a doctor in this episode, which is another major personal violation.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
this guy is like, I'm not going to help you and your mutant baby. And she's like, all right, well, I'm going to just borderline kill you to suck out all of your medical degree and use that to help Jean give birth here.
Yep. Yep. In addition to that good conversation between Rogue and Magneto, where we're exploring the relationship between Rogue and Magneto, which is not something I want to do.
He's got super thin electromagnetic condoms.
Holy moly. When Rogue was like, that cat has to stay in the bag, I was like, please. Literally, please keep that in the bag. But Jean has a conversation with Storm about the baby, and she reveals that she hopes that the baby will be born human.
Yeah,
and
that's a very interesting moment.
It's again, like they're using the mutant thing to take place for real conversations that real people have about the life that you want for your children and certain things about them where you might, as a parent, really hope that your kid is born a certain way so that they'll have a better life. And it's wild to explore this in what is, for all intents and purposes, a kid's show.
Yeah, I did not expect them to try to even navigate these kinds of depths.
Yeah.
I figured it would stay a lot more on the surface, and we could still have a great show with lots of action and lots of like inner workings of X-Men politics and the whole Scott Magneto push and pull. Like, hey, Wolverine and Logan are in love with the same woman. We still get the drama out of that, but to really like go through to the point where you have Jean more or less saying like, I don't want my kid to be born in this hunted minority class. I mean, this is a pretty poignant and sad revelation from this character. Like,
Oh yeah.
you don't want your child to like share in the life and the abundance and the future with you in that way. You just want them to live in a existence where they're not hunted for who they are. It's very sad that
it's very
that she feels the need to have that conversation.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's something that uh a lot of parents have to struggle with and think about, like, who will this person be, and what is the best version of their life. And it's yeah, it's intense. It's very intense. So the government shows up and they're like, Magneto, you're under arrest for crimes against humanity. And I'm like, absolutely he is.
And good luck as well.
I don't think the statute of limitations on like being a terrorist and multiple times trying to take over humanity, I don't think that's run out yet. So he does a pretty sick thing where he points all their chopper blades at them, which is like, that's a crime just in itself. Like,
Yeah.
threatening a bunch of government military personnel and government agents, but he agrees to go with them, which kind of surprised me at first.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's still in his head. He's like hearing like, what would Charles want me
Yeah.
to do here? Because in the beginning of that sequence, like Scott walks outside and says something like, "Oh, we don't get scared when the good guys show up," and
Yeah.
then they all whip out their guns, and Magneto's like, "Well, you were saying, Scott."
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, now that Magneto is here, they're all of a sudden the X-Men are a lot more expendable than they were, maybe a day or two before that, when Magneto decided to take up their cause. And yeah, so we get a full display of his power. And I think it's also in part to just like let the people know that he's like, I'm not coming with you by force. He's like, I'm coming with you by choice. And I'm going to do that because of Charles and because I'm trying to be a better person and to give his dream a chance here. But if I really wanted to, I would just kill you all right now. And if you piss me off, then maybe I will do that at some point in the future. So we get to see like both Magneto's penchant for turning quickly and not really having a lot of remorse for humans, because this is a character who has come from the Holocaust, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
we get this character who, I think he says it, I think it's in episode 2, where he's like, I've said this more than I should have ever said, and that's never again. And
Yes. Yes.
so it
Mm-hmm.
is this sentiment of like, he has allowed these transgressions against him and his people over and over again in the name of hoping that things would change, only to be proven correct in that they are not going to change and that they will continue to be hated and persecuted. And like, his patience is wearing thin. And if not for, Charles's dream, I don't think he would exercise any discretion in basically terminating all of these human beings that want them dead.
Right. Right. Yeah, he has a great line in court where he says, "As a kid, my family's homes were burned because we dared to call God by a different name."
Yeah.
It's like, wow, 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 wow. And like you said, he has been through this. And,
Over and over again.
you know, not to jump ahead to the end of the episode, or it's not quite the end of the episode, but, after everything goes down in the court, he now has, he has these judges and the executioner uh in a place where he can kill them, and now he has like just cause, and
Yeah.
you know it's not like theoretical reasons anymore, and he still doesn't do it. And I was also kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I figured he was going to kill at least somebody there, but I wasn't sure like what kind of character arc they're going for him,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't think we had seen the X-Men actually like kill anybody at that point yet. But like you said, he is, I think, well within his purview at that point to be like, look, the guy just walked in here with like a specialized power rifle, shot my teammate in the back, and now her abilities are gone. So it's like, don't lie to me that like this stuff is just happening in a vacuum, right? So I think it points back to that notion that this this effort to get rid of mutant kind and to preserve humanity is not just this thing that is happening in the shadows in these militia groups. There is definitely connections to higher ranking government officials. And maybe it's not these particular ones that are sitting at the table here, but we get this fucking awesome scene where Magneto's like, no, I'm just going to rip the entire
Mm-hmm.
sort of UN council out of the ground, and we're going to put them
Mm-hmm.
in a little electromagnetic bubble, and then we're going to go up into space. And also, the
Mm-hmm.
guy that tried to shoot me is right here too. And I'm going to lecture you all on why I'm not going to kill you this time. But we
Right.
get like this incredible music for that. And they're still protecting the UN at that moment, because you have like the angry protesters outside that are trying to get in and kill Magneto,
Mm-hmm.
kill the judges, and he has to tell them, he's like, well, you gave a monster a trial, so now you're the villain too. And like,
Right.
they're having to rationalize, oh wow, like we're actually going to be hunted by our own people for making this decision, and like it makes the stakes very real. So he just rips them all up into the atmosphere and then gives them the speech of like why he's not going to hurt them in this case. But in that moment, like the music is exceptional. And like I'm thinking as I'm watching it, like Magneto is incredibly powerful, but he's also really confident in his abilities, which again is something that I think we see out of a lot of the characters. But if you remember back to what is it, First Class, where Charles goes into his mind and like finds the right balance for him between like
Mm.
I forgot exactly what the words were, but between like serenity and anger, like that perfect balance where Magneto is in full control of his abilities. And so he has Charles to thank for being the Magneto that he is, to being like the fully actualized, full potential mutant version of himself. That sort of belongs to Charles in a way. So he kind of like has to honor Charles for that.
Mm.
So it's an interesting moment where we see like he's at the full height of his power, just floating above the earth, like lecturing these politicians about, I've been encouraged to remember this view of Earth and that we're all sharing this. And like, we're not
Yep.
asking you for A, B, and C. We just want you to understand that this is a shared planet that we all have to sort of cohabitate on. and that's all we want is the respect of that cohabitation. And so I think it's a nice sort of like full circle moment where it's like we get sort of like a real interesting snapshot of his entire relationship with Charles just right in that one scene.
Yeah, it's pretty great. He says, please do not make me let you down.
AKA murder all of you.
Yeah, which is a fun play on words when he's literally holding them
Yeah.
suspended in air, right?
Yeah.
So as this is happening, as these things happen, Jean goes into labor and she's
Yes.
there with Wolverine. So now it becomes a bit of a uh I don't want to say a buddy comedy, but it's like Wolverine
Yeah.
rushing her to the hospital.
I'm right here with you, Jeannie.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Where's my
And
husband?
right. So they get there. They won't deliver with a mutant. He says, you people lose control of your powers. So Rogue shows up, drains the dude's doctor powers, I suppose, which is an interesting idea. It's like a little ripple to Rogue's powers that she can specify what to take from specific people.
Yeah. I think it comes along with the territory. It's like she automatically absorbs their memory with the sort of life force essence that she's taking, but it's fleeting.
Yeah. So we deliver the baby. This is, of course, Nathan Summers. And while this is also happening, Beast is analyzing the gun, and he determines that this is much like the collars, but it's permanent, and Storm no longer has her powers.
Yeah, and it's a really sad moment, like, because you can tell the Beast doesn't want to tell her. And
Mm-hmm.
Storm is like, just tell me how much time. And Beast has to be like, I'm sorry, but it's permanent. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so the character introduction we got from Storm, like in the up until this point, she's an Omega level mutant. She's arguably the most powerful mutant that's on the show. I think she's the
Mm-hmm.
only Omega mutant that's on the show. Uh, Magneto was always like right on the cusp, and then
I was gonna
sometimes he's
say,
Omega,
yeah.
sometimes he's not. But like Storm is for sure an Omega level mutant, and so to have her be depowered that way is like, oh wow, the stakes are high. Like this human with the rifle just managed to like take down one of the most powerful mutants on Earth, and you know that this isn't the only version of this rifle that's out there. There's got to be
Mm-hmm.
more of these. There's more of these executioner type guys out there. So you really have the X-Men facing like a threat of being depowered in battle. And that scene of her, I think it's this episode. It might be episode 3, but like when she hears the thunder and gets scared because it's like she's never heard thunder before. She's never been caught off guard by it.
Yeah, it's this episode. She had the conversation earlier in the episode with Jean about what it would be like to be a normal person, right? And she
Yeah.
talks about, yes, I've thought about that, but then I never would have come to this school. And then just a few minutes later, we get her alone in the bedroom this time, and she's writing the letter saying goodbye. And it's very sad. Really, really well done. And the other thing that she says when she first loses her powers, she says, I can't feel the breeze. I can't feel
Mhm.
the air. I can't feel the water or whatever. It's pretty bad. So she leaves a note explaining that she's leaving and why she's leaving. And Jean reads it and everyone's crying except for Morph. So the door rings and he's like, see, that's probably her right now. And he was right. It was her, but it was a different her.
Enter Jean Grey number 2.
So Jean Grey shows up and says, I need the X-Men, and then passes out. So it's another great cliffhanger.
It is. And so it just like it teases you enough to be like, "Oh wow, I really need to see what this next episode has in store. How could this be where the episode ends?" So
Mm-hmm.
great cliffhangers, and there's a moment during that delivery scene as well, too. Not the delivery, but when they're holding baby Nathan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jean goes to Scott and she's like, he has your eyes. And me,
Oh.
if I'm Cyclops, I would have been like, well, I hope not.
Yes.
But
That was
instead,
pretty funny.
it's just, well, he's got to have a name.
Right.
But I was like, that joke is right there. And it
Yeah.
seems fitting with like who these characters are. But, it'd be funny if baby opens his eyes and blows a hole in the hospital roof and is like, I told you we don't want to deliver mutants in here. And then
Right.
the police show up and it's a whole ordeal. But yeah, so we get like that sweet moment between the two of them, and we get like parents, like adults having a child and really having to like weigh the cost benefit analysis of like staying with the X-Men. I think it's smart. And then introducing the other Jean, and it's like, okay, well, now there's an extra wrinkle to this conversation that they're gonna add a lot of complications in episode 3. But I feel like episode 3 sort of maybe rushed through that story a little bit, but that's because, we're leading into sort of bigger elements coming down the line.
Yes. We're, like I said, before we started recording, I believe I said to you, this is kind of like Whiplash.
Yes.
Like I still think it's good. I'm still totally all for it. And I'm kind of like, yeah, let's keep, pedal to the metal. Give me clones and Magneto running the school, and let's just put it all out there. Sure, whatever, man. Who knows what's coming down? And as the season progresses and we kind of slow down and settle into one story, I did kind of miss the craziness of these first 4 to 5 episodes where it's just like, and so now we're in episode 3 and it is Castlevania horror movie.
Thank you for checking out the show and becoming an X-Friend. Hopefully you'll join us on our journey through X-Men 97 and beyond. X-Friends is a Movie Friends and Bad Movies We Love co-production and part of the Scheist Podcast Network, hosted by Seth Vargas and Nick Scheist. You can find our contact info and socials in the show notes, and you can email the show directly at xfriends@thescheist.com. That's the letter X, friends@thescheist.com. So until next time, mankind has always feared what it doesn't understand.